Okay. Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. Thank you for being here. Let's get into some data. We'll touch on some points and then take some questions. We now have 695 cases. This is up from 667 cases yesterday, 28 new cases. As we've been able to get our arms around data and start tracking cases and do proactive testing, we now, especially related to proactive testing, can talk more about our cases and what that represents. So out of our 28 cases, 5 of them are affiliated cases due to our proactive testing strategy. We can talk about that more. And 7 of them are contacts. Contacts being somebody in a household. We know that there is a higher probability that if there's a positive, people in that household will get it. Many of these contacts have already been under a quarantine. Many of them have already started to recover. So why is that different from regular cases? If you're an affiliated case, specifically related to a potential property, that is easier to contain and control and is not representative of total community spread. So that doesn't represent the intensity of the virus in the community. Contact cases the same. So when you look at it, we have 28 new cases. 12 of them are either contacts or affiliations. So the community spread number related to the robust testing we had was 16 yesterday. So overall, that's what the data means that we see there. There are 44 individuals in the hospital. That's representing 16% of our active cases. That percentage has gone down over the last week. That's good news. That number, 44, is the same as it was yesterday, which I think was the same as the day before. Related to folks in the ICU, down to 13. Very good news. 3 people have left the ICU. We're very happy about that. Our ICU number has been trending downwards. It was between 8 and 10% of our active cases. The last few days it was 6%. Now it's 5%. So we'll see if that's an ongoing trend. Out of the individuals in the hospital, the breakdown, I believe, let me do some quick math here because we're missing a digit, but I believe we have 24 Caucasians, 11 African Americans, 3 of another race, and 6 unknown. So those breakdowns and those demographics have been pretty steady. Certainly for everybody in this process that lost a loved one, we grieve with you. We continue to think about this impact on you and your families. This virus is a very serious virus, and we're continuing to think about you in our thoughts and prayers as a community. Today we have 404 people who have recovered. That's our green curve. When we look at our curves, our red curve is our total cases. This started on March 16th. This will end whenever COVID-19 is no longer in our community. That curve will go on for a long period of time because COVID-19, even when we have a vaccine and a cure, we will still be charting what that means. So that's our red curve. Our green curve is 404. That's up 35. We've had 35 recoveries. Excellent data. People are getting better. We're very happy about that. So when we break this down, we've had 695 positive cases. We've had 404 people have recovered. Currently, our active cases, which is our yellow line, is 269. That is down 7 from yesterday. So that is a good sign. We've been saying we need to kind of see this. It's even more encouraging because we're doing proactive testing. We're looking for potential asymptomatic cases in areas of density. So this is very positive news. Other positive news is we now have 787 people in isolation or quarantine. This is down another 75 or so individuals from yesterday. This gives us more opportunities with our health department resources to actively track the virus and be more proactive with the virus when our quarantine numbers are more manageable. Again, think about it. If you're someone who is a contact of this, and we now have 96 contacts who became positive because they had contact within a household, you're already in a quarantine. We don't need to go quarantine and investigate those. And so the quarantine numbers, we have to follow up with all these individuals from a quarantine. So that is good that our quarantine numbers are going down the way they are. 380 individuals have been female, 315 male related to positive cases. 24 cases have been under 19 and under, 133 cases in their 20s, 99 in their 30s, 112 in their 40s, 126 in their 50s, 99 in their 60s, 50 in their 70s, 35 in their 80s, and 17 in their 90s. Breakdown of percentage by age bracket, 23% of our cases are under 30, 37% are under 40, 53% are under 50, 71% are under 60, 29% are over 60. Breakdown by municipality. City of Syracuse, 310. Town of Clay, 72. Town of Manlius, 49. Town of DeWitt, 38. Town of Salina, 38. Town of Camillus, 33. Town of Onondaga, 33. Town of Cicero, 26. Town of Geddes, 20. Town of Pompey, 20. Town of Lysander, 19. Town of Skaneateles, 14. Town of Marcellus, 4. Town of Atisco, 4. Town of Van Buren, 4. Town of Lafayette, 3. Town of Elbridge, 2. Town of Fabius, 2. Town of Spafford, 2. And Town of Tully, 2. Geographically, there really is nothing much to say. There are a couple hot spots that fall into some of these municipalities with buildings that we are now proactively testing. That might skew the data a little bit in some of these municipalities. But the virus is to the north, east, west, and south of our county, and certainly to all regions around us. So the virus is still here. We need to watch our health, take our temperature, be very cognizant of our symptoms every day. Related to testing, we have 8,922 tests that have been administered, and we had 274 tests completed yesterday. Proactive testing, just this morning, we had another 49 tests at one of our assisted living facilities. This included residents and staff. We've had 8,815 tests that have been returned, with 695 positives and 8,120 negatives. Our pending tests are now back down to 107. We received 255 tests back yesterday, since yesterday, and right now 7.9% of those tested are testing positive. The strategy that has been reported about, we've been talking about nursing home testing employees. The state is now actively doing testing within many of the facilities. Assisted living falls under our local jurisdiction. We're actively going out, testing employees, testing residents. Independent living facilities, again, reports on some of these facilities that have had cases. We are testing those facilities, looking for folks who are asymptomatic, and testing employees and residents. So this is part of the strategy. It started to work, where we've identified some individuals that probably wouldn't have gotten tested anyways, that were positive. Now we're able to do our isolation, look at what quarantines need to be had, put those in place, and certainly this strategy has already helped pay dividends related to stopping community spread. Looking at the positive case, if you test and you test positive, again, our health department will contact you. You will hear from your primary care provider as well if you have one. We will then go over, check in on your symptoms, check in on your health, go over our investigation. That's where we start our tracing of contacts, looking at who you've had direct contact with, and then that's how we determine who we reach out to and who we put in quarantine. Reminder, just because you work at the same business doesn't mean you're in direct contact with someone when they had symptoms or the days before that. That is determined via our health department investigation. If there are any gaps in the investigation, we will let the public know, and we will ask the public for help so that they can be acutely aware of all the facts. Related to social distancing, we went over some data points yesterday. I think it's important to reiterate that this is a mitigation technique that works. It helps with the spread. It is one of the tactics and techniques that we've used, and certainly it's slowed things down. When you look at the average cases that we had before our voluntary shelter in place, and now the average cases that we had after, and now where we're going this week, when you break out data, we're having a strong week. We're still on that downward trend. It works. To clarify, yesterday we talked about our effort to engage the community for the 2-week period of a voluntary shelter in place. And we did that because it was a technique and a tactic that needed to be done to get the community's attention. The community has responded. We are not at all suggesting it's time to relax social distancing. What we're actually saying is we want you to do more, and we're challenging you to do more. We're just suggesting that you know how to do more yourself. You don't need me to tell you how to do more each week. You know the threat. This threat has been with us. This threat is a killer. You know somebody that this has impacted, and you probably even know or have heard of somebody who's been in the hospital. So you don't need me to tell you how to do more social distancing within your own calendar and your own lives. You don't need me to do that. You can do that. I have every confidence that we will do that, and we'll do even more for this next week moving forward. Looking at some of the other topics, when we start to think about economics, certainly economic recovery is going to be a big piece of this in the future. We want to just let people know that go out to our economic development website. We have job openings posted, www.ongoved.com. On that website, click on the Jobs tab up in the top left. There are many companies hiring. And so part of this is go there, look at the companies, diversity of economic clusters and opportunities. Certainly some companies in this crisis will end up actually doing better, others will not. So take a look at that. In addition to that, there's been a lot of talk about restart, what it looks like, and we're planning and getting a lot of great feedback from private sector partners, from other governmental leaders, healthcare professionals, as we develop a restart plan to present to the governor for Central New York and essentially the Mohawk Valley, with Tony Picenti from Oneida County really leading the charge for that end of our community. I understand there's anxiety related to restart. Some people think that we should have restarted already. The data, the worst case data, has been incorrect. We didn't have these horrible peaks that many predicted. That's true, and we're very lucky for that. But part of why we're lucky that never happened here is because of the actions that this community has taken, the actions of our residents to do the right things, the actions of our healthcare networks, and all of the partners that we've built up. Because we've built this up, we have improvements in our data, and we can have the conversation about a restart. Other communities haven't been able to have that conversation yet. So the best way to get the data to the point where restart isn't a conversation, it's let's go, is to continue to social distance, continue to be vigilant, and those who are on the other end, very scared and very cautious, we understand this. But the reality with this virus is as follows. It is either going to be with us forever, even when we have a vaccine and antiviral treatments, it will still be here, we'll just be able to treat it, or it will leave like other flus and come back. So at some point, we have to move to our next phase and our next fight with this virus. And that's getting back to business in a gradual and controlled fashion where our health professionals can do their jobs and do their jobs well. And we see data improving because of many different things. But I went to work today. I wore a mask. I went to work. I went into the office. If other people can do the same thing, and many people are, in social distance in the proper way, we believe that we can do this and we can get back to life in a way that's not going to impact the public health if we're all smart and we all work together. And so certainly any restart would be a phased-in approach with the with really the main goal being that our healthcare system has to continue to be able to meet the challenge of the restart in every phase. So I know there's a lot of anxiety about this, and we have to find that balance as a community. We will. We have every step of the way on this process, so I just think that's important that we talk about that. Access to assistance, Upstate Triage Hotline, 315-464-3979. Again, you're going to call this line if you need to get tested, you have symptoms, you don't have a doctor, you call and you'll get screened, and then you'll go and get tested. Our seniors, our healthcare worker and adult nutrition hotline, 315-1987, 315-218-1987. Let me say that again. I got ahead of myself right there. 315-218-1987. This is a line for individuals who need help. You don't traditionally need help. You need a meal. You need help getting some groceries, some toiletries. Contact that line. We have many volunteers and different county workers that will help you. Daycare has been it was a big part of our plan when the community started to shut down. It will be a big part of our plan as there is a restart on the other end of this. We have worked with our Child Care Solutions partners, 315-446-1220, for daycare slots for essential businesses. We have hundreds of slots available. As we move into the next phase, when that is, we don't know yet. The health professionals and the data will drive that decision. But when we move into the next phase, we'll expand daycare because we know that will be a challenge. 211 for social and emotional support. Again, certainly everyone is going through a lot with this. Please contact 211 for help when you need help. There's nothing to be ashamed about. I tease, and I'll tease myself a little bit here because this is funny, but that I have cranky moments too. And the other day I talked about I was a little cranky, and I didn't realize this, but later that night I was out on my porch, and I may or may not have yelled at my 3-year-old. And it was reported to me because down the hill is this little girl who's a very good basketball player named Mackenzie, and she went inside and said to her mother, "Mr. McMahon is cranky again," because she heard me from down the hill. So Mackenzie, thank you for keeping me in check. But this has been tough on everybody, and we're getting through it, and we're doing good as a community. Saying that, we'll take questions.
Ryan, today the governor announced a partnership with Michael Bloomberg to fund and develop a tracing program statewide using state health department personnel. You've alluded to a similar infrastructure being built here within your own health department. How will the two coexist?
I'm not sure, Andrew. I read about it, don't know many details behind it, but certainly this is all about resources. So certainly if you have more individuals that they're, whether you're using grad students, whether you're paying people who to essentially investigate cases and connections. That's what we do right now, right? We box in the virus. So we have someone who's infectious, they get a test, we isolate them, we fact find on their contacts, then we quarantine. It's a box. That's essentially what we're talking about here. We talked about having to have our own COVID-19 tracking team. I'm sure if state health is running this, what they'll probably do is go to their local health and spread some of those resources to local health departments, and maybe we get 10 Bloomberg affiliated tracers and working with our local health department team. Maybe that's how it works. That would make sense, and certainly we'd be welcome to that.
So would it be one or the other, a partnership?
We can't, look at, we're never gonna outsource our responsibility to public health in our own county. So we're gonna have our COVID-19 tracking team. That's our job. But I'm sure state health will take these resources and work them in through the. Remember, the state health department is a regulatory agency, and they regulate and work with best practices and then they give guidance to the people on the ground. We're the 57 health departments around the county. Those are the people on the ground. So we're always going to be doing this, and we're always going to be doing this in the way where we get results. And we would very much appreciate some of those resources coming back into our county.
And a lot of this isn't based on the virus going away. It just sounds like we're getting better at mitigating it, capturing it, and therefore isolating people before they can spread it much further. Is that kind of the point with reopening, but continuing this tracking?
Yeah, and I'm going to do tonight on my Twitter, and I'll share it on our county Twitter too, is Dr. Gupta sent us a video of these professionals. It's 20 minutes, but I think it would be worth everybody's time, where it looks at various active models related to mitigation techniques and how they work. And under all these models, the one thing that works the best is the box. You find the infection, you box it in, and you isolate. So that's what we're going to have to do. This virus is going to do two things. It's going to leave like the flu, or it's going to be here, and we're going to have positive cases, and it's us reacting to the positive cases and risk mitigating the community spread. So we're under the assumption that that's what's going to happen. And even when there's a flu shot, right? But people still get influenza A and B. So even when we have a vaccine, it could be a shot just like the flu shot. We're still going to get COVID-19 cases. It's just we'll have a way to treat it then. So right now, we believe that we need to be able to track this virus and identify and fight this virus in live time in a proactive way. The more people we have doing that, specifically for this task, the better and more effective we'll be.
Ryan, we've seen in other parts of the state
protests about reopening the economy. You've talked about the anxiety that people are feeling here. Can you just explain or expand on what kind of pressure you are getting from who to start reopening some parts of the economy here? Yeah,
so, right, you have people who are scared, don't want to do anything. We need more time, we need more time, we need more time. And then we have people who are saying, look at what happened. You all are wrong. You're all overreacting. The flu kills more people. And if you want to fall into one of those camps, there's enough information to suggest that you can be in that camp. And you can look in the mirror. I get it. You can make the case to skew it to your point. Our job is to find balance. And when we're looking at this, you have public health do no harm. And that's the balance you have to find. So as we get into this process and our ability to track the virus is there and quarantine it, where we're mitigating the impacts on public health, at some point we need to rebalance what the decision-making process is related to the economy. Because do no harm, at some point your economic interests create other public health problems. And so how do you find that balance? You plan, you prepare, you look with your people who are responsible for public health, Dr. Gupta, her team, our partners who've been on the team the whole time at the hospitals. This is what we're thinking for a phased-in approach. What do you think? Can you do your jobs under phase one? And when the answer is yes, and then the data shows that it's pointing that direction, and Dr. Gupta says, yes, I can do my job, I'm comfortable with the risk and the balance, that's when you move to a restart. And there's pressure at every point in this process. We've had decisions we had to make that there are people on both sides, and they're well-intentioned, screaming at me from both sides. So it's always been, to me, this is another part of the process, but an important one that we get right, and that we got to get this right, and we got to have our health department and this COVID-19 tracking team ready, and so that we can continue. We don't give back all the gains we've made because of a decision that was rushed, or a decision that maybe in a phase one you should have left out one cluster of businesses till phase two or phase three. So we get a lot of feedback from the business community, we get a lot of feedback from individuals, and then we sit down with our doctors at the end of the day, all the public health commissioners, and they all talked today from our county region. They all had a conversation, and we say, what are you comfortable with? And then that's when we go to the governor and say, here's the plan. Give us your feedback. What are your concerns? But the pressure is real on both sides. I get people who are sending me very nice letters at the beginning of this process who are now saying they don't like me anymore, and now, and vice versa, right? I hate you, maybe you're coming around. So it's really interesting, but I get it. You're talking about economic ruin, you're talking about public health. People get really sick from this, and so we got to find that balance.
Have you gotten any wind of the kind of protests we're seeing in Albany and Buffalo, anything like that being organized locally?
Yeah, I haven't heard anything of real substance outside of your typical trolling online and various things. You know, we recognize that Central New York is different from the rest of the state. So we believe we've done as well as we could do with this pandemic to date. And that's put us in a position to be able to talk about a restart. So it's not that if you're of the same mindset as, from a libertarian standpoint, it's not like we don't want to be in this position. We'd rather be with you, but we have to balance the public health needs and our ability to respond to treat this virus, because public health and public safety is government's #1 responsibility.
When you talk to the county executives or other leaders in this region, when the health commissioners talk, are all the counties at about the same place, or does one county, from your interpretation, stand out in being in a different part of this pandemic? Just what's your read on where everybody stands?
The conversations are essentially everybody believes that our region of the state should be allowed to restart when the data merits it. And so they're very happy with the governor's approach to this. Certain counties have different aspects of their economy that are different from ours and that we don't think about. So that's why you get together and you understand what's important to them and why, and then you have the health departments talking about it and talking about approach. But nobody thinks that out of the county leaders that we should have to wait until things on Long Island get better and things on New York City get better. The state really can't afford that either, if you think about it. So it's got to be a data-driven approach, which we've taken to every decision we've made. And we're continuing to do that. Now we're looking at the regional data. So look at the regional data. Pretty flat, going up, going down, similar to our county. So this is really good data when you compare it to the rest of the state. And when you compare it to other states now that are getting impacted. So at some point we have to find that balance. And I think we're facing decisions in the near future about getting our plan to the governor, getting the governor and his team's feedback. And we wouldn't be here if our data didn't merit us having this conversation now.
What's a key number you're looking at? Is it how many active cases compared to recovered cases?
It's really, it's not so much a key number, because now on testing we're doing things we didn't do before. 4 of our positives today were affiliations that were asymptomatic. Okay, so these people could have been out spreading this. We found them. How do we know that there's going to be asymptomatic people there? Because we had other spread there, and we figured we might do that. So we go proactively test. That skews our data. Normally that data wouldn't show up in any of this because they're asymptomatic. And so it's not so much this, it's our ability to test and test quickly. It is our ability for our hospitals to have capacity and our hospitalization rates to stabilize and our ICU rates to stabilize. They have. It's the ability to get PPE so that our healthcare providers and our primary care doctors have PPE. So if they start to see increased workloads, they have the proper equipment. Certainly it's downward trends in the data. We've seen that. And then it's our COVID-19 tracking team, or tracers that you heard the governor talking about with Bloomberg, having those things in line for the region. And once they're all ready, and the state approves a restart, then you're ready for a phase 1. And what's that date? Well, these 5 things got to get ready, and they're getting closer. But then the governor still needs to be comfortable with the restart plan and ask the tough questions of the professionals. And then once all that's cleaned up, then we have to, as a community, take the courageous step forward.
Do you worry
And then we have
about-
to be ready to pivot in the event that data changes, right?
Do you worry about people coming in from other regions and continuing to spread the virus?
We worry about a lot of these factors. That's the risk we have with being a community and living, right? And all this is risk mitigation. There's no 100% risk mitigation. That's why we have this team that's out there, and they're going to be busy, being proactive. And once we win this fight with COVID, there'll be something else. May not be a pandemic, but there'll be something else for us to do related to public health.
Do you know of the nursing home or assisted living facility employees that got tested? How many of them tested positive?
We're not gonna highlight one facility. We know that via the proactive testing today, there was 5 affiliated cases, with affiliated cases meaning in nursing homes, assisted living, or independent living facilities. I can guarantee you there will be more tomorrow, because we have a lot of results coming back tomorrow specific to this proactive testing. So certainly this is, why do we do this? We knew we had hot spots, we know there's density, and there's been cases. So we go in there and think about putting out a fire. If there's a fire there, how do we put it out? We identify, we find, and we quarantine.
Besides quarantining those 4 or 5 asymptomatic people, what are you doing at those nursing homes to help prevent the spread where there's clearly an issue?
So these cases were at an independent living facility, not a nursing home. We're going to have nursing home cases. Again, nursing homes fall under the state. We're doing the employees because they want to get tested. We're here to help and backstop in the event care becomes an issue with the nursing homes. But the state is now testing the residents, and that's their job to make that call with the residents. There's been very good coordination between the state and the county health departments related to nursing homes. Affiliated or assisted living and independent living facilities fall under us. So we're being very active, asking for voluntary compliance from all these businesses for their residents and for their employees. And most of the testing we're going to get back tomorrow is going to be in this proactive space. We're going to get the positives. We got to probably wait a little bit to get the negatives, but we'll get the positives. We have not gotten numbers from Walmart yet. I knew I'd get that question. I put a call into them right before I came. So
you got 5 yesterday, 5 affiliated cases, 4 of them had no symptoms.
correct. Mm-hmm.
And
Given that you're finding that, we'll probably find more. Do you know how many cases from the beginning started in these either nursing homes or elder care facilities?
We know how many are in the building, right? That if tested positive. Why we knew if you're going to find asymptomatics, you're going to find them where there's been a bunch of positives, right? And so that's why we did what we did. But yeah, essentially, we know. I think you reported on one of the spots, or someone from Syracuse.com. I'm not going to. Chris did. Oh, okay. Good job, Chris. But we know that there's positives. That's essentially an outbreak in that facility. So let's test everybody. Let's put out the fire and educate the people who don't think they're positive and carriers, and get them quarantined and get them help. And so that's happening. We probably have half a dozen or so buildings across the county that of recent this is what's driving the data. The community spread is not as intense as it was. It's these specific buildings where people are on top of each other, or very close proximities, or interacting with each other. And so we're going in there trying to find all the risk, anyone who's sick, and so that in 2 weeks from now, we've mitigated that, and we're on to the next strategy. I think there's at least one other apartment type complex that we've seen cases, more than a couple cases in. We have, yeah.
If you're testing asymptomatic people going into these assisted living places, et cetera, there's an executive order that if you get tested, you have to quarantine until the results come back. Does that apply to these asymptomatic, proactive?
Yeah, so many of these individuals that we tested were already in quarantines because there's positives and they had contacts. So that's that. And we're flexible with the employees now that we're proactively testing on our executive order with that. So there are law departments working when that's the case. That's one of the concerns of the business owners. Will you relax your order so that they can continue to work? Asymptomatic, we're going to work with Dr. Gupta on her advice there. Symptomatic, no, we're not going to relax the order. We're looking at that. That's a real-time challenge right now for us, and we're looking at that in real time.
So you're aware of a list of buildings, whether they're elder care facilities or residential apartments, where there are outbreaks, and you're going in there more aggressively to test people with symptoms, without symptoms. That's your focus right now?
Yeah, mitigation. We know overall that this hits seniors harder than anyone else. Where do some of these seniors live? They live in buildings. Have there been positives? If there's been positives, we go there first and we identify it. And so we're identifying everybody, and then we're going to the next one when there's no positives, and then the next one and the next one. And at some point, this proactive strategy will be done. And then we will look at where the new data is and where the new cases are. Is there a pattern there? And then we go there. And then eventually, there may not be a lot of new patterns. We've stopped the hot spots, and our community spread is 10, 12 cases a day. And there's no patterns. It's random. That means we're winning this fight. And then we look at maybe different types of proactive testing on risk mitigation. That's kind of where this is. Maybe home health aides are next. So that's where this is. As you get capacity and you get the ability to do more because the numbers are going down, you can do more things.
I came in today planning to ask you where these new cases are coming from, because I remember at one point a few weeks ago you said they were preventable cases. Are we still seeing preventable cases, or is the majority this kind of highly dense places like residential buildings?
Yeah, that's between contacts and affiliations. That's what the last few days have made up almost half our cases. So we know contacts will happen. That doesn't strain our resources. So it's a positive, but it's a positive we've already accounted for, and we already anticipate these affiliated cases. We knew that there's positives. We had concerns. We're being proactive. We're taking the fight to them. We know we're going to get more positives, but by doing that, we're identifying and we're isolating and quarantining.
I know we're not naming the facilities that have these positive cases, but do you think that they should announce that they do have positive cases? So if I have a loved one in there, I can bring them either like to my own house if I feel that would be more safe? I
think they do for the most part. I think they have to, specifically nursing homes now. I think the governor did that. Most businesses, and mind you, these are businesses, when they have a case, do let their workforce know, their residents know. So I think most people know. I think what happens is there's a level of anxiety with some of these buildings, maybe not communicating as well with family members. And we're getting some of that too. I know you guys get calls and we get calls too. So we started seeing certain trends in the data. We got very active with our partners in the state. We have offered to do a lot of things. They're taking us up on a lot of it. And we're getting a situation that could have gotten very bad under control.
And I know you said that this might divert to the state, but a lot of people in our community have someone that they love in a nursing home or an assisted living facility. Is there anything you want to see the state do more of?
Well, I think the states in our region right now, we're working very well together. They're testing residents. We're getting employees tested. So from that standpoint, that's how you get in front of this. And so I think the collaboration over the last few weeks has been solid. But it doesn't change the anxiety with family members and their loved ones when they can't go see them and they know that they're sick or could be sick. So I'm very sympathetic for that, to that. That anxiety is still there, and there's this is very tough. This is very tough, especially when COVID is preying on people who are very vulnerable, many of them with underlying conditions.
Brian, can these senior facilities request the health department come in, or is it solely up to you to decide which ones you're going to?
We've identified every facility, Chris, and we're proactively reaching out to them. If it's a nursing home that's requesting us to come in, we will call the state and ask the state for guidance if they want us to or if they will. But we've already proactively reached out to all of them. Some of them we need to nudge a little bit harder to be proactive. They have concerns about staffing, if you have too many positives or if you don't. We get it, but we need to get in and we have to mitigate the risk. And many of these facilities don't have any cases, so they think that the risk isn't there. We want to make sure the risk isn't there by testing. I don't know the exact number, Tim. I think you've had deaths for people that lived in nursing homes. I don't know if it's 4 or 5 or 6. It's the state's supposed to be reporting that, and when we're doing what we're doing and we're tracking it, I know we've had deaths affiliated with other buildings that weren't nursing homes. I know we've had people die who had their own homes, but certainly I know that we've had a handful of individuals who have lived in nursing homes or have rehabbed in nursing homes that are not with us anymore.
Speaking of people dying, there was a crash earlier and where a high school student unfortunately passed away. And I know there's different ways to mourn, and in this social distancing, we can't all get together. What is advice that you have for some people at this time?
Yeah, so Zach, who passed, is somebody that I knew of, and I know many people that loved him. And he was a senior, and these seniors have not been together, and they're mourning for them, and they don't know how to mourn. And many of us, when we've gone through this stage of life, have lost somebody during that time, and it's a terrible thing. And so we're in a situation now where many of that community is grieving. He was an important person in that senior class. He was a well-known figure locally. He was a good basketball player. He worked at camps. Many of the little guys and girls who go up in the west side of the city of Syracuse and the towns all knew him. And so there's a lot of people grieving for him. So there's an outpouring of people to grieve now. And I've received the reports about potential gatherings with the students and vigils. And my advice to parents is to keep your kids home. This is just really tough, and it's really unfortunate. And Zach was loved by a lot of people. So we knew, we've talked to the West Hill School District. We were alerted about what was going to happen. We have given PPE to the West Hill School District, masks, in the event that the students do show up outside to grieve. We've alerted the sheriffs about it so that the sheriffs can be there to help manage a situation. But it's a situation that you never thought you would be in, where you lose a kid tragically to an accident, and the kids just want to grieve. They want to be with each other, and you have this virus that's so dangerous. So it's a complicated situation. Zach wasn't a stranger, and it makes it more complicated and emotional that this kind of loss is going on. But we got to be safe and be smart. And but we do recognize that there are going to be people that are going to mourn no matter what happens in this situation. Other questions? Couple things. Certainly want to continue to thank all of our workers that have responded to COVID-19 that don't get enough thanks each day. Everybody who's played a role in our fight here. We're making grounds. Many of you often would cover us when we would have a new baby born at the zoo. I miss those days, those pictures. With our new, it's like a rite of passage as the county executive. You get to take all the pictures with the animals. We had a baby Saskatchewan calf that was born. What is a baby Saskatchewan calf? That is a big goat. And so that was born. At some point, we're going to let all of you get pictures with the big goat. And certainly, hopefully, we'll have our zoo open in the near future again so that we can see that. And also, today was our dairy giveaway. Just want to thank everybody again for that. My understanding is there is lots of people participating in this, and there will be a lot of milk given out to many, many different households. So every day is a challenge in this process. Every day we're fighting together against a virus. Today we lost a young man who it was very, very important to many people in this community, and we want to think about him and all of his friends and his loved ones. It's just a reminder that time and our health are the two greatest things that we all have. And so let's do everything we can to protect both and continue to be smart, stay strong, and be safe.